Hey, what's up? Summertime. It's what we're doing. Um, Hope everybody's doing well. Keep the comments rolling in. Um, and yeah, keep getting a rhythm, I guess, what they say. Um, I'm gonna talk today about Saturday Night Live, the post from Monday. Um, and this is how these are gonna generally go. Um, I'm gonna just talk. It's gonna be kind of a ramble type thing, but I'll also try to incorporate your your comments into and respond to some of them. Instead of I'd be here all day if I was typing responses to each one. So this seems to work the best for everybody. Um, so SNL, something I didn't say in my intro video that I hope you all watched and enjoyed, is this idea that, because I can feel some of you being like, why is everything going to be comedy? I mentioned this a little bit, like, I think it's the best way to do it, um, to get to be critical. Like, it's the job of comedy to be critical. Why? Because this is the thing that I say a lot. Humor exists where shit's most fucked up. That is something that over the years I've found to be more and more true. Um, and comedy, humor, comedy, whatever, it starts with a fucked up thing. And then comedy is the attempt to understand it, reframe it, rethink it, solve it, whatever, you know, outcome you're looking for. Humor is the attempt to do that, if that makes any sense. So you look at all these sketches, right? That you hopefully watched, and most SNL sketches, but these are obviously all commercial parodies. So what's the thing that's fucked up that the comedy is trying to illuminate or, um, make an example of or whatever? It's advertising. Like that's our advertising is fucked up. At least what we've made it into, right? Corporate greed and basically trying to trick you. Like every one of those commercials and virtually every commercial you see is trying to trick you. And that we don't think about it because advertising is so ubiquitous in our culture. Like you've been inundated with ads since before you were born. In the womb, you were getting ads for I don't know what baby stuff. Um, but we don't think like, oh, this kind of sucks that these people are trying to trick me just out of my money. Like that's essentially what it is. If you think pharmaceutical companies want to help you, that's a really um, naive and optimistic way to look at the world. They just want to make fucking money. Um, if you so bringing up a bunch of those commercials, like that's you are all sort of walking, tiptoeing around it. Like these were commercial parodies. They were meant to expose how ridiculous, obnoxious, disingenuous our corporate advertising is, right? And they showed it through um, all different types um, of commercials that all are kind of doing the same thing. They're just trying to trick you. That's a bummer. Like I've that's a bummer. That bums me out. Like, oh, that's what's happening. Like, it, there's no need for it. If your product is good, like you guys have seen this before, if your product is good, people are gonna find out about it, and you're gonna probably buy it. Like, why do we need commercials for any of this stuff? It doesn't it, it doesn't make any sense to me, I guess. And these SNL sort of takes on all these different ads, I think really, I mean, at once expose the ad industry for being kind of shitty and trying to a bunch of things I'll get to when I get to your comments. You guys hit on a bunch of them. But they do this. SNL does it through exaggeration. A couple of you guys mentioned the exaggerate, especially like a couple of you mentioned the Rock one, the advert, enhance the boner drug. Um, but that idea of exaggeration was Mallory, I think specifically, Mallory and Tyler both specifically mentioned how exaggerated they all are. They exaggerate. That's a comedic staple. Exaggeration to the point of realization for the audience. It's when you're watching a comedy, whatever's being exaggerated most is usually the thing that they're asking you or leading you to think critically about, right? Um, so um, that's another again. All these things are built into comedy, like exaggeration to the point of realization, it existing where shit is most fucked up. Um, these kinds of things are what you have to, at least for the purposes of the course, you have to start looking at. So, what's the fucked up thing that this comedy, this show, whatever it is trying to expose or whatever? Um, what's what is this exaggeration asking me to look at? Um, and it's it is a little switch in your brain that you have to flip. Most of us haven't flipped it just because, as I mentioned in that intro video, like it's comedy. Why are we thinking about it? If you have to think about it, it's not funny. That's dumb. Um, that's so dumb. Like the best comedy is comedy that you have to think about, and that's something that um, I talk about a lot too. Is the difference between good comedy and just comedy. Period. Um, Comedy is anything that's funny. Not all comedy is meaningful. I think the best is. Good comedy is meaningful. Comedy is funny. If that's a distinction that you can learn to make, um, like getting kicked in the crotch is hilarious. Always be hilarious. There's really nothing else there, right? That's just comedy. And then good comedy is comedy that gives you the laugh, gives you the funny, but also has meaning or something bigger sort of behind it or underneath it. Um, and that's the kind of stuff we're looking for when we're watching all these TV shows. Um, so a little bit about SNL. I don't want to make these videos too crazy long. Um, a little bit about SNL. Like, back to their critics. What people don't typically understand is it's a variety show, right? They understand that, but they don't think about that. So variety show means variety. Like there's supposed to be something for everyone, right? That's why they have a guest host. That's why they have a musical guest. That's why they do update every week, right? They do topical news jokes. That's why they do. They try to do like a really sort of weird. There's a weird sketch. There's, they'll bring back tried and true characters. They do character work. There's physical comedy. There's puns. It has to have something for everyone because it's trying to get everybody to watch, if that makes any sense. So you can't just be like, sorry, the thing stopped or whatever. So anyway, you can't just be like, I think you should leave, right? The Tim Robinson sketch show on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, you should because it's wicked hilarious. But that's so niche, right? That's like for a very specific audience in many cases. And all the sketches, yeah, they're not, it's more artistic, maybe. And I'll get to that in a minute with the Dudleys. We'll talk about the Dudleys, that little, not the Dudley Boys from WWE, the Dudleys. Yeah, it has a different, its intentions are different, if that makes any sense. So not every sketch is gonna kill you, right? You're not gonna be bending over laughing at every single sketch. They're just hoping like, it's a good show altogether, if that makes any sense. And most shows aren't sort of bound by that intention. So yeah, basically, my big thing about advertising, as I mentioned before, they're just trying to trick you. Like literally, all those sketches are trying to trick you. And SNL with these commercial parodies are exposing that, right? It stopped again. It's probably my shitty computer. Anyway, exposing the reality. So like that's what these SNL things, by exposing the reality of the situation, exaggerating, it's basically showing you how they're tricking you, right? Showing you how they're being deceptive and disingenuous. The one that Charlie mentioned was the Duncan one with Casey Affleck, where he's just like, that is more your typical Duncan experience than what an actual Duncan commercial looks like. America runs on Duncan and all that stuff, right? Like that's kind of the play that a lot of these commercial parodies have. Like, who mentioned the Chloe? Chloe mentioned the Nike women's leggings ad, right? Like it's same with Lululemon or whatever. Like it's pitched to you and sold to you as like this super active wear, and you use it to to work out and train and to be healthy, and when most of those purchases are used to just I don't know, run errands or like sit on the couch or whatever it is. Like that's the commercial. So the exaggeration is just like they're basically saying like let's be real about this. And honestly, like I prefer that. Like I would love to see a commercial that's just like, you know what? I'm done trying to trick you. This is our product. This is what it does. You're probably going to use it for this, right? Like that's like iPhone ads. Like, do we need ads for iPhones? Do people not know? Like, I would love an iPhone ad that was just like, hey, get the iPhone. You're just going to use it for texting and email and social media anyway. Like, so, yeah, like, I'd love that. Um, I'd love to see true ads, right? And every one of these sketches, these commercial parodies, is just basically saying, you know, is highlighting how untrue the actual ad is. And many of you said like they use all the conventions. It looks like a real commercial, right? It looks like that, um, but they're they're sort of making an example of it, so to speak. But back to my other point, what the ad industry is interested in doing for the most part, and has been for a long time, is blurring the line between need and want, for us, for the typical consumer. Basically, it's saying you need this to be happy. You don't just want it. There's a big difference. Like if you just want something, like you can go without it for a while. But if you need it, right, this is gonna, whatever this is gonna fix everything, right? Um, and that, um, shoot, where is it? Oh, that goes to Shay. One of Shay's comments about, I think it was the Summer's Eve douche. Um, which I'm glad a couple of you brought that up, because in class, like when we're watching this in class, like in real life, no one talks about. I think everyone's like, I don't want to bring. It's too cringe to bring that up, and I'm like, it's so funny. Anyway, um, the profit, a lot of the ads geared toward women are an example of how companies are just trying to profit off of women's insecurities that are generally reinforced by the culture itself. Um, that was a great point, and one that I, would have eventually gotten to had you not reminded me. So I do appreciate that. Um, all of it, almost every ad, is basically saying, "Listen, dude, or lady, you're not good enough. You don't have enough money. You're ugly. You're fat. You smell. You're stupid." Like all those things, right? That's part of the side effects, thing, which a couple of you mentioned, like listing all the side effects. Um, basically saying you gotta have one of these, right? Then if you got one, then you need this pill or whatever it is. Um, but pretty much everything preys on all ads prey on our insecurities. And like, again, like that's shitty, right? Like that's not how it should be. Like making us feel like shit so that we spend money is that's that's broken. That is a broken system. But here we are. Profit off of insecurity. Profit off of making us all feel, incomplete unless we have whatever it is. But you know what it can also do? And I just thought of this. It works the other way too. They can make us think we're doing more. I don't know, I just thought of this, so it's not fully formed. But the Levi's Wokes, right? The Levi's Wokes make you feel like, oh, if I buy these jeans, it makes this statement about me, and everybody will. But I guess that's an insecurity. We're insecure that people think we're not woke enough, right? That's part of, um, who was talking about? Someone was talking about the attack on wokeness. Um, it was Mallory. I think it might have been Mallory. And I think it's a valid criticism, like that, like the bubble sort of looks at that, and the Levi's wokes, but it's the corporate sort of, um, exploitation of wokeness that's, I think, what is kind of really shitty about all of that, right? Like we just had Pride Month, right? And every company puts a rainbow on their fucking Twitter account and Instagram, and they're like, yeah, we love LGBTQ plus, we love it. and then July 1st, it's gone. Like, it's just, it's, it's becoming, it's pretty trite that corporate America is like using wokeness, and I hate to call it even wokeness because wokeness started from a good place, but taking like wokeness and like how can we make money off of this, right? Um, I'm all over the place here. Um, so I just want to go through your comments and make a couple sort of observations. Um, so Jaden was talking about the side effects from the ED drug, which is like all that just to, and this is back to insecurities because it's not just women that the industry preys on, men as well. And this, back to Tiffany was talking about the men's cosmetics one with Dan Levy, which is like men, we're getting to this point where men want all this stuff, but if they do it, they feel like, oh, they'll be perceived as a pussy, I guess. Pardon my pussy. Um, and they want it, but they gotta make it tough, right? It's gotta be like dirt and oil. Like they used to have like I don't even know what company it was, but it was like body wash and shampoo in a thing shaped like an oil can. Like, hey man, you don't you don't you're too tough to smell good. So like if it's oil you're washing, it looked like an oil can, but it was shampoo. If that makes any sense. Or the Jason Momoa one, if you guys watch that in the playlist, where it's like he's a stay-at-home dad, so a dishwasher has to be like all this has to be industrial like tools, right? His vacuum cleaner's a riding mower. His washing machine is like has a 70-pound door, and all that shit. Like making these quote feminine things masculine, so that it's okay for men to maybe venture off, the venture into um, more feminine sensibility. Um, anyway, I don't know how I got to that, but Jaden was talking about the side effects, right? And I mentioned this before, but it's like all these side effects, like we can't, we're that insecure about boners that like we'll risk everything just to have an erection. Like I mean, that's, I guess, America, I guess, right? Um, Also, Jaden just on a first name basis with The Rock, by the way, just calling him Dwayne was a nice touch. Um, Adama used this term resistant to irrelevancy, which I really liked. I probably will steal that. But that's kind of comedy itself, right? Not just SNL. Comedy is always changing. If it's based in, what I said at the beginning, what looking for shit that's fucked up and fixing it, right, or whatever, addressing it, then it can't be irrelevant because it's constantly looking for the next thing, right, to make fun of or sort of call our attention to, I guess. So I like that, resistant to irrelevancy. I think humor is that, not just SNL. And then she brought up the Dudleys. The Dudleys is a great sketch because it talks about a different kind of advertising, basically. But it brings up this idea, and I talk about it in other classes all the time. The idea that art ceases to be art when you take the audience when you consider the audience, basically. So if you start making art for an audience, it's that's a commercial enterprise, basically. It's not an artistic one. And that's a lot of TV. And that's the Dudleys. That Dudley sketch is like, oh, what do you like? Oh, you like this? All right, we'll change it immediately. Like, no artistic integrity whatsoever. Not that the original Dudleys had a ton of it, but you know what I'm saying. It's basically like if you take a show, let's say you had a show, and this happens with TV, movies, everything. Um, you have an idea for a show, and it's really good, and then you take it to a network, and they say, "Yeah, we want to shoot it, but we want to change this character and change that character and add this and add a dog or whatever." Like, as soon as that happens, your artistic vision is sort of diluted, right? So then you say, okay, that's fine. Then you shoot a pilot or whatever, and you have test audiences see it. Like, we don't like this, we didn't like that, we don't like that. Then advertisers see it, and they're like, well, you can't say that because that'll, offend our customer base. So you start pulling things out of it. Basically anything interesting out of it, little by little. And finally it gets to air, and what do you have? Basically you have Full House. I don't know if you guys know what Full House is. Maybe you know what Fuller House is, since it was on Netflix. But that's what you end up with. It's just a completely hollow, just hollow pap is what you end up with. And that's the Dudleys. Like, the Dudleys is just catering to, the audience's whim. Well, that's not really art. So I like that stuff. We talked about exaggeration of the point of realization. Mallory and Tyler were both talking about that. And then I talked a little bit about TV and comedy, both sort of exposing a truth. Like, that's kind of what the good stuff's invested in. That makes it. The 39 Cents sketch was brought up by Shay and maybe Adama. That's one. It's like, if you really want to help, like help, don't send 39 cents. Like, it's just it's kind of ridiculous. I talked about Chloe with the Nike ad, and I wrote exposing the lies. Like, these sketches, these commercial parodies expose the lies that advertisers tell you, right? And then she talked about mom jeans. I'll get to mom jeans a little bit more later in the summer. But it brings up this really, I think, interesting idea that if you listen to the tags at the end of that sketch, they say, you're not a woman anymore, you're a mom, right? When you've giving up, put on your mom jeans. Which that will pay off later in the semester when we watch some other shows. This idea that mothers are generally removed from any sort of discussion of women or feminism or anything. You just don't see your mother as a woman. Does that make some of you are going to be like, what? Not that you see her as a man or anything like that. You just don't see her as, you think, oh no, it's just my mom, right? That kind of idea, the culture sort of has absorbed that too. And they're like, what, mothers don't have opinions or ideas or whatever. And then the mom jeans kind of taps into that. We'll talk about that more. I mentioned Tiffany with the men's cosmetics. And she talks about gender roles. There's a bunch of them. I brought up the Jason Momoa one. This idea that that being masculine is a very specific thing, right? Um, and Bill Burr talks about this a lot in his stand up. If you watch him, like, men have this sort of this, like, I don't know how I'm gonna phrase this, but he's always like, I would love to just hug a puppy. I would love to do that. But in the back of my head, all I hear is my friends saying, calling me gay or whatever it is. And he's like, so I can't do it. Right. So it's like toxic masculinity and how it impacts men, right? Um, and I think that was part of the men's cosmetic sketch, right? Men want things but can't have them because they have balls, I guess. I don't, because balls. Um, they want to, yeah, they want to hug a puppy. They want to buy a pumpkin. They want to make a cake, like whatever that is, right? Those things have been, they've been gendered as feminine, but like, they're not. So that there was a lot with gender in that one that I liked that Tiffany brought up. I'll end with Mallory. Mallory was talking, brought up the bubble and the wokes, but the bubble one I think is interesting because as you watch it, you're just like, this is, it's basically secession, right? It's basically saying, we lost, so let's just create this community where everybody thinks the same and everybody agrees and everybody, and it's like the most boring place ever, right? Um, at least it seems like that, right? Um, not to say that I don't think it takes a political stance, but it's just saying like how far away from them are we, if that makes any sense. Maybe it doesn't. But yeah, the bubble as that's just as bad an idea as whatever the other side is um, putting together. All right, this is already too long, so I apologize. I hope you made it this far. Keep commenting, keep watching these, and comment on these. I feel like this is the point of the course. Not to toot my own horn, but I know some shit. Okay, I'm done. Until next time.